Welcome to the Corporate Treasury 101 podcast. This is the second part of our full episode with Andrew Winders from FIS, where we will get to know more about what is Integrity, one of FIS Treasury Management System. Andrew is a senior manager at FIS with a deep expertise in one of FIS core products, the TMS called Integrity. FIS is a behemoth in financial products and services and offers a broad range of treasury services and softwares. In the episode of today, expect to learn what are the key features of Integrity that differentiate it from other TMS solutions, who is FIS and who is Integrity made for, how customizable is Integrity, how does Integrity connect to other company systems like ERPs, Reuters, Bloomberg's, payment factories, and so on, and how does Integrity ensure data security and regulatory compliance, and of course, much more. This whole series of episodes is a bit the first of its type. Most of the episode is about FIS and their solution. But we thought it would be interesting to deep dive into a treasury management system with somebody very knowledgeable about it from the very company providing it. So please let us know what you think about it and if you would like more of this type of episodes in the future. If that is the case, and when you are thinking about how you found our podcast, chances are that it was through word of mouth, social media, or a recommendation from your favorite podcast platform. And this is our only request to you. Please leave a review if you enjoyed the episode on your favorite podcast platform. It only takes 5 seconds, will help others learn more about Treasury, and this would mean the world to us. On another note, this episode is brought to you by Automation Boutique. Automation Boutique is empowering Treasury, finance, and risk management with tailored automation solutions. They use robotic process automation, or PA, AI, APIs, and Power Query to create automations that can work with your existing systems. We partnered with Automation Boutique as we really like their approach to innovation and how they help the industry. For this partnership, they came up with an AI-powered automation self-scan that can help you find out if a business process is suitable for automation and how to best get started. It is totally free, non-intrusive, and only takes about 15 minutes. What's great is that the report you will get from the scan helps you determine if the benefits of the automation outweigh the costs. If you want to have a look, head to the link in the description or to automationboutique.com/corporate treasury 101. With all that being said, please welcome Andrew Winders.
Okay, first thing that comes to my head is there something Integrity cannot do? But let's dive into this a little bit later. So among everything you've just described, so that feels like covering most, if not the key treasury areas, right? What's a typical mature treasury department will have to deal with. What are the key features of that particular TMS that differentiate it, again, maybe from other TMS solutions? And let's dive a little bit deeper into it later on. But even within FIS, like what does Integrity do that we might not find in other TMSs or in a different manner at least?
Okay, so I think simply the breadth, that's the first thing. If you want, as I mentioned, everything from simple cash management, but with embedded bank connectivity. So being able to understand the standardized market messaging, market formats that banks will use to transmit information back and forth. That is available within Integrity. Having out-of-the-box connectivity to ERPs via API, that is standard connectivity out of the box. So having a lot of yes, you've got a standardized approach to treasury management, but what you also have is a standardized approach to connecting to lots of different data sources. And then, as we were talking about earlier, having all those other embedded features, your market data, your money market funds, your confirmation matching, the Swiss Service Bureau, all those other areas embedded into the workflow of Integrity offers a very, very broad capability, which I believe truly differentiates against the rest of the market. But then when you move into the more advanced and sophisticated end, having the ability to define hedging portfolios, having the ability to utilize value at risk statistics, sensitivity and scenario, and making sure that when you're a much more sophisticated treasury, you've got the ability to really understand your risk profile and what you are as an organization truly exposed to. So it really gives that end-to-end treasury capability, but it also has within that natural, standardized, embedded connectivity to all the other external data sources that a typical treasurer would need.
And would you recommend integrity to a company of any size? Or would you say that it would be something that would be suited as of a certain size or complexity or revenue?
We used to look at it from a revenue point of view years ago, but now we don't, because we've got some extremely large organizations using the integrity platform. It really comes down to the degree of, we have two approaches here. One is configuration, one is customization. If the customer is happy to take a standardized approach to treasury and is happy with simply configuration approach to managing their requirements, integrity is absolutely the right solution. But as a lot of people are aware, FIS also have a secondary treasury platform called Quantum. If a corporate is much more aligned to a customization approach, where they really want to create a very, very bespoke workflow specific to exactly how their organization delivers certain part of their process, well, Quantum will allow you to be very, very customized and deliver exactly on that user's expectation. So it's really that kind of trade-off between configuration versus customization. And the other difference, obviously, between Quantum is that integrity is a true SaaS application, whereas Quantum isn't, but that's where it gives the user the ability to really define in a customizable way exactly what they need.
And you say it's not a SaaS program, what do you mean by that?
So Quantum is either a locally installed application or is a privately hosted application. So still very much hosted, but within the architecture specific for the customer.
Okay, very clear. Because so my original question about the size, I mean, you mentioned a lot of time like advanced treasury departments. You said that a few times, and which sort of suggests that. I guess my question is not so much like would you use integrity or Quantum. My question is, when do you move from Excel to integrity, or if that's the right solution for you? Like, how does a treasurer know? Oh, right now my treasury department's not using a TMS. I should think about putting a TMS in place.
So the point you're alluding to is exactly right. So in the integrity market is getting wider at both ends. So yes, we're seeing large organizations that would have had very bespoke treasury architecture and solutions now becoming much more standardized. So they are coming into the SaaS market. So you're seeing the large organization becoming more and more comfortable with a SaaS application. But you're also seeing at the smaller end, more and more smaller organizations believing they are now ready to adopt treasury technology because the SaaS application is now more affordable for that end of the market. It's much more of a turnkey approach to delivering a project for a customer, so return on investment is very, very swift. So there's arguments at both ends. So as soon as a customer feels that they are spending too much time collecting their banking information in the morning, they're spending too much time trying to get information out of some of their operations, well, then is the time to really embrace treasury technology and do away with all of that manual communication and have technology manage that for you.
And you mentioned that integrity is like the less customizable option that FIS offers. I'm guessing there's still some flexibility in the tool nonetheless.
Yes,
right?
completely. So what I mean by less customizable, there is one version. Being a SaaS product, there's just one version of the application. But that being said, because every customer has their own database, every customer can configure their workflow, their analytics, their process, their visibility, their alerts. They can configure whatever they need within that application. So there is not two customers on two different versions. We are only supporting the one version, but the customer has then the ability to configure exactly their process within that one version.
And that's probably meeting most treasurers' needs then, I guess, like that level of customization. Because what other customization would you need other than that workflow? Is it just if like the business structure is so unique that you need to have a very specialized tool?
No, it's more to say, so business structures and entity relationships, that can all be accommodated. It's more if there is something in the product, if there is something that the customer wants that a treasury platform doesn't deliver. If it's outside of Integrity, well, Integrity delivers what it has within that one version. With Quantum, for example, there is the opportunity to say, I want to have that extra piece of functionality. Let's work together on creating that extra piece of functionality for the version that I'm using.
And sorry again, but digging a bit deeper into this, Andrew, because I think that's super interesting. Why would a treasury department seek further customization than what a well-advanced treasury management system already offers? Like, and maybe to put practical example, because let's think about the people completely new to treasury as we were a few years ago. Why would a treasury department say, okay, I need a high level of customization for that specific treasury function? Can you give us examples maybe, or like explain what that would be?
Yeah, so in certain countries of the world where there's very bespoke processes and very particular ways of doing things, there may be the need to really create something very, very specific for their organization. It may be due to local banking expectation is in terms of how they actually share information. It may be around a very particular process that an organization utilizes that maybe has come from an inbuilt system, and actually when the organization has become of a certain scale, that inbuilt system is no longer fit for purpose because it can't accommodate the scale. But that very bespoke inbuilt system, they still want to have a version of in the Treasury platform. So then, we quite often talk to customers who IT departments have created their own sort of offshoots of Treasury capability. Maybe the organization still believes there's a lot of value in having what their IT department has started to produce. So then there's that discussion with the vendor. Well, how much can you accommodate this in the standard offering that you have in your platform? And if there's something highly bespoke, do we have the opportunity of working with you to create something similar that will actually bolt into the Treasury platform so that they can still continue in their utilization of the original tool, but it then just is supported by the vendor rather than their own internal IT team?
Makes lots of sense. Awesome. Thanks a lot for this. Back to Integrity. How does the system integrate and connects to other companies' systems? I think you mentioned earlier, we touched upon the Swift Service Bureau. It would be interesting to dive a little bit into that in the sense of, okay, how does the TMS allow you to speak to the outside world, but also within the company? How does this whole thing works?
So one of the ways is Integrity comes with a very sophisticated middleware, and effectively it's a transformation service that comes as standard with the platform. And what that allows the user to do is to talk to any other system that has a structured file format. And that's sending information and receiving information. And we typically do that over a host-to-host connection, or otherwise known as a SFTP connection. So it's a very secure connection. But what we say is, one of the other areas where we differentiate is we never tell a customer the format of information that we must receive in order to consume that data. We tell a customer, just generate what you can generate. It could be literally a CSV file, an XML file. It could be any sort of file type and any type of file format. And then all we're doing is using our transformation service to understand the content of that information. So it's a very flexible tool. And that means that we can actually integrate to a vast array of connection types and data sources, but in a very efficient way. So there's minimal effort required either on our side or on the customer side to use this transformation tool to read data or to generate data, send information out to other platforms. So that in itself is a great tool, a great advantage. One of the other ways, though, obviously, as the whole market is talking about API. So having API, like a suite of API connections out of the box. And again, talking about how we differentiate ourselves, we deliver API connectivity only when it's truly out of the box. So what we don't do is we don't deliver an API connection that's ready on our side, but then go and tell the customer they need to do all of the technical work on their side in order for the data to start flowing. Literally, when we say we have an API, there is probably a day or so involved just for testing the data flow, and that's it. And that could be to banks, to dealing platforms, to ERPs, to a range of data sources.
And so when preparing for this interview, we obviously thought about our, not colleagues, but the classic market data suppliers and solutions, right? So Reuters and Bloomberg. But I think earlier in this interview, you mentioned that FIS has its own repository of market data and like live updates. Does this mean Integrity or other FIS solutions only come with the sovereign market data from FIS, or can you still connect to Reuters and Bloomberg if that was the preference of a customer, for instance?
Oh, yes. We have many customers using Bloomberg, Refinitiv, central bank information. It can come from a multitude of sources. We have no specific preference. All we're saying to customers is, if you obviously like a Bloomberg, for example, has a great brand associated. If you don't need that brand, if you don't want the Bloomberg terminal, you just need the data, you don't need to spend so much money in procuring that data. It's just going to be an automated feed on a daily basis, and the Treasury platform will then have the information you need for all of your accounting and reporting.
Andrew, you're talking about a lot of data, and I guess a lot of sensitive data as well that comes into that. What's your take around data security regulation in different jurisdictions, GDPR? I get that right?
Yeah.
GDPR in Europe and likewise in other regions as well. Like, what's your data integrity, data security a policy or system?
Yeah, we have FIS is one of the most security-driven organizations that I think you're probably likely to come across. And that's because not only do we have a lot of corporate customers, we've got extremely large financial institutions and banks and other very heavy users of our hosting infrastructure. So security is extremely important to all parts of the FIS organization. So we partner with the Department of the Homeland Security in the US, we partner with Microsoft, we partner with all the major players in data security. We've got all the security accreditation that you would typically expect, that we share openly with our customers. We invite third parties to perform penetration testing on our hosting environments, for example. We are very, very aware of the GDPR regulation. We're very mindful of that. We're very kind of also aware of customer expectation of data residency. So, post-Brexit, for example, very important to be able to offer UK and European hosting environments as an example, as well as in the other parts of the world. So security, hosting, all comes down to that one strategy around how do we ensure customers can make the most of our platforms and the most of our technology, but equally, we can absolutely guarantee the safety of customer data.
Well, I'll ask you a question that's a little bit more difficult, Andrew, but I'll give you a little bit of perhaps a way to answer it as well. So what would you say? I mean, we've sang a lot of praise about the FIS system. This episode's not sponsored by FIS, so I want to delve a little bit into and try to give a bit of a balanced view as well. So what would you say are the limitations of the system today? And maybe one way, like I said, to sort of give you a thread to perhaps go down. There's a lot of the FIS is one of the biggest providers in the market, right? But there's a lot of young, new startups and fintechs out there that are perhaps, looking at niche fringe cases that are perhaps a little bit more applicable, that perhaps it's just not the area that FIS wants to play in. A lot of the time from these challengers in the market, new trends emerge, right? Or new solutions emerge which define the market. Do you see anything that like you say, oh, this is like where we see the market might be heading towards because of some new innovations that have come around that we are looking to perhaps go down towards, or we don't have yet? Is there anything like that you could comment on?
Yeah, there is. And you're quite right. This is not sponsored by FIS, but I will try and spin a challenging question into a positive answer, of course. Yes, that's exactly right. That there are a lot of startups, more nimble players. There's a lot of benefits of FIS, but obviously it's a very large organization, and you will always find a few negatives with large organizations as well. So you have to take the positives and negatives together. So the new startups can influence the market, can program quickly, can get a product out quickly and start to influence the expectation of the market. And that's especially relevant now in, over recent times with geopolitical volatility, interest rate volatility, that in times that we're living in today, a treasurer's job was relatively, I won't say easy, but was less complicated than it is today a few years ago. Whereas now all these other risks that you need to factor in. And so we're seeing a lot of new players in the market around optimizing working capital and real, very nice liquidity management as a result of this world that we live in today. Understanding what your liquidity looks like in the future and stress testing that depending on certain events. I mean, there's a lot of new players who are doing that, and that is something that we also now have a clear strategy on. So we have an internal program around that. But to your point, there was probably a couple of names that I can think of in much smaller fintechs that are emerging in different parts of the world who are really leading with some of this. But to put the positive spin on the end of that, we also live in a highly acquisitive world. So the treasury world, the treasury vendor space, everybody is being bought on a weekly basis by different people, and it becomes the industry itself becomes volatile in terms of the ownership of these platforms, and that's one of the benefits that FIS has. Obviously, nobody's going to come in and buy FIS, but these small and nimble players that influence and have a nice offering initially generally find themselves being bought out by one of the larger players, at some point down the road. But I think it's good to have this competition. That's what always excites me about this role, is that you can't just rest on the laurels of a very capable treasury platform, because tomorrow somebody's going to come out with something that the market really likes, and all of a sudden people see it as really essential, and we have to continually adapt very, very quickly, which is the exciting part of the role.
So do you guys have some sort of, I don't know, incubator program or something that you are like working with these nimble startups to sort of develop solutions or anything like this? Because a lot of big banks are doing that, for example, in other parts of fintech. Yeah,
for sure. So there are parts of what we have in our vision for the platform that we are delivering ourselves, but there are other parts where we said, well, actually, this nimble startup has already done it. Why would we go and reinvent something similar? Let's just work directly with that organization. So we're certainly doing that, and that is hugely beneficial to the startup. They can then make the most of being or having access to a larger organization and all the benefits that brings, and our customers get the benefit of instantly being able to integrate that newer capability into the Integrity platform.
To continue on, not the challenging questions, but one of the interesting points we would like to touch upon with this. I mean, that's something we ask all the people working with system vendors that come on the show. What's required to implement integrity? What capabilities does the corporate need to have? We often see external consultants as well coming to help and support the implementation of such tool. What's from your perspective and from what you've seen with all the years at FIS. How long does it take to implement integrity, and what does it entail exactly?
That is the question we get asked every day, and that is the hardest question to answer. It really, when it comes to the implementation, and it goes back to your earlier question on how do you evaluate technology. If you can only evaluate technology if you really understand the vision of your own business and exactly the new markets, the new processes, the new things you're going to have to tackle as you move ahead in your treasury function. So if you understand all of that, then you can map that into an implementation strategy. Now, we have sort of two flavors of implementation. So one is you are a smaller organization with a lack of resources, but you need technology. So we'll deliver a packaged approach. So ROI is very swift, costs are very low, but your decisions are limited because it's a very much a turnkey approach to delivering functionality. That doesn't limit you to what you might do in the future, but to get you started and off the ground, it's a very quick and easy, efficient way of delivering an implementation. However, for those organizations who really have a clear vision of exactly what they want to achieve with their treasury technology, what we do is we go through a very clear planning process with the customer before any contracts are signed, so that the customer knows exactly what to expect and we know exactly what to deliver. And what we're doing is I think the worst case scenario is generally where customers say, just come and replicate what I'm already doing, because then it limits the value of the delivery of the technology. So if we still work with a customer and say, what is challenging today? What you don't like today? What are you going to need tomorrow? And map that in so that by the end of each milestone, the treasury team can turn around and say, what we're doing now is far more efficient in delivering far more value than we had before. Then that becomes a success. But then there's a third element to it in terms of who's going to deliver the project. So we offer flexibility. We have a very large accreditation process with delivery partners. So many consultancies based all over Europe can deliver integrity. But it's the customer's decision. Do they want to work directly with FIS Professional Services? We have a very, very large integrity professional services organization. Do they want to work solely with a consultancy that they already have a relationship with, or do they want to have a hybrid approach? So it really is down to how the customer wants to work with their delivery team.
Absolutely awesome. So in terms of resource needed to address that particular point, well, the correct answer is it depends. But obviously you, as a corporate who is implementing any system, whether it be TMS or trade finance specialist tool or payment factory, you will need some efforts, right? It cannot be completely hands-off, like, guys, just come in my system, do everything, and please deliver me the end product. So here again, maybe just beyond it depends on the size, what's a reasonable, maybe not number, but I hope you see what I mean, Andrew. Like, what does it take on the corporate side to say, okay, today we are either without a TMS or with an obsolete TMS, we would like to move to integrity. What does it take for somebody completely new to Treasury? What does it actually take?
Yeah, it takes a great degree of prioritization, because generally, obviously, you are still performing a treasury function, but you have then the added role and responsibility of supporting an implementation. And depending on your role, you might only, if you're an accountant, you might only have to devote, a much smaller proportion of your time to the overall project. Whereas if you are a treasury analyst getting involved in everything, you may have to devote a higher degree of your time. So what we do when we design an implementation is taking everybody's availability into consideration. So our shortest implementation may take a couple of months, but then it will build up and up from there, depending on the size of the organization, the number of modules the organization wants to utilize, the training approach for the organization. So it can really vary between literally very short timeline to be up and running and live, if it's just cash and liquidity visibility. But if you're doing all the way through to front, middle, and back office and everything else, all the risk and analytics on top, then you might be looking at a significant timeline. But everything we put together is factored around availability of resource and key milestone dates. So if you are literally turning off if you already have a treasury platform, and if you're migrating to, or we like to call it upgrading to integrity, then we have to work back from certain dates. So we have to say to the team we're working with, it's going to be hitting cash and liquidity here, foreign exchange here, back office here, accounting and hedge accounting here. And we must stick to these dates because we have a deadline that we must achieve. So all of that is very visible in the design up front. But then it comes down specifically to your question, what are the skills that the individual needs to bring to make this project a success? So not only must they obviously really understand their own role and responsibility within their organization very, very clearly, they must be able to translate what they're doing today into what they think technology should actually deliver for them. And we obviously assist in that understanding. But when we've mapped out that understanding, we've got to get the data together, the integration together, the workflow, the reporting analytics. Every part of that process has to be specific to that organization's expectations. And obviously, we try and remove as many manual steps as possible, and the customer needs to be happy with that. So there's lots of factors that go into it, but we really ask for dedicated support from the cash manager, the accountant, the treasurer, if there's any IT support needed for sort of in-house integration to other data sources, for example, just to make sure those people are available and take part at the relevant time to support the meeting of the project timeline.